Her title of her speech is Barriers. Barriers, Shannon.
When I was little, I always enjoyed looking at maps of the United States. In fact, one year, I even printed out blank copies of the US map, each state outlined, but no labels, and brought them on Christmas Eve to my cousins. I said, hey, look at here. We're gonna all take a copy and write down as many states as you remember based on what they look like. We did this, and you can guess who won. But admittedly, I was tied with my cousin, who was my year as well. We both got 48 states. I will now always remember Delaware, but that's besides the point. I knew from this young age that I always wanted to go to every single state. And so I told myself I would. And as of earlier this year, I have hit a tiny number of 11 states, and I was itching for a vacation. So I told myself that I would take another step towards my goal of going to all 50 states. When I studied abroad in England, I actually had a friend who became my friend because we were roommates actually, who was from New York City. So I reached out to her and I said, hey, what are your thoughts on me coming to visit you? When we had parted ways last, I had said I would come visit, but I had actually meant it. And so she said yes, she was thrilled. She's actually in her year in between med school and after undergrad, so she's doing med school interviews. So we arranged it and made the plans. So the day that I was supposed to arrive, she actually had a med school interview, but that was fine. I said it'd be okay. So I take my flight with my big backpack, which was very nostalgic of my times traveling abroad, and I go by her directions. It was pretty interesting because she had actually sent me a photo of a fruit stand and said, hey, so this is the fruit stand where my parents work. That's where you can go. Go meet them there and they'll take you to my apartment. They don't really speak English, but it's okay. But by the way, can you also send me a photo of yourself so I can give it to my mom so she knows what you look like when you get to this fruit stand? Okay, I knew this would definitely be a bit of a barrier, but that was fine. I am always one for adventures and willing to go through that. So I take the metro and I eventually arrive at this fruit stand. I see a man in a green puffy jacket and I approach him. I figure this is her father, so I say her name, Jin, and I say who I am, and he looks at me, and we stare at each other for a minute, and then I say her name again, and then he finally says, oh yeah, Jin Lao, her middle name. I'm like, okay, yes. And he proceeds to call her. I have no way to communicate to him that I know she's not going to answer because she's in the middle of this med school interview. So he calls her, it goes to voicemail, and then he kind of blinks at me. Okay, we have a moment there. Don't know what to do. And then he finally grabs his phone again and calls someone else. Okay, we find out, well, I figure out that it's his wife. And then he gets off the phone and he looks at me and he says, coffee? And so I nod, sure. And I follow him as he rushes next to his door to this tiny pastry and coffee shop with 2 tables and a booth. So I sit at the booth. He asks if I want cream and sugar. I say no. He hands me the coffee with cream in it. And he rushes outside. So I'm sitting there not really knowing what's going on, but it's fine. It'll be fine. And I'm honestly just in awe because I tell myself, wow, I can't believe it. I'm already here. I'm in New York City at this random tiny coffee shop. And then I start people watching. I eventually see a tiny woman in a red puffy jacket who approaches the man. And they start talking, and I figure, I bet you that's the wife. And so they both come inside, and he kind of gestures between the two of us. And she looks at me, and she nods, and I nod, and we're like, okay. And so she bends down, and she picks up my huge backpack I don't know what to do. I don't want her to have to carry my huge backpack. It looks like it's going to drown her. And I try to ask her, hey, I'll take my backpack. She shakes her head quickly and starts walking. So I'm like, okay. So I get up and I start walking and I follow her. And so then we go several blocks until we finally reach an apartment with a tiny door. We enter this apartment and we go up this tiny elevator and reach the door where she looks down at her feet. So I copy her and I look at my feet too. And I see we have plenty of shoes strewn around us. So she starts taking her shoes off. So I'm like, okay, I'm taking my shoes off. So I took my shoes off and we entered the apartment. She takes my backpack and like drops it in the side room. So I kind of like, okay, I follow her and I go into the side room, and that's when I knew that if I had any doubt in this being my friend's parents, I don't anymore, because there was a photo of her and a friend on the mirror. So I was assured if I hadn't been already. And so I come outside and she looks at me and she goes like this. She's asking if I want to brush my teeth. So I nod, and I guess I'm going to brush my teeth now. So I proceed to grab my stuff to brush my teeth, and that's what I do. And then afterwards, she looks at me and tries to ask if I want to take a shower. And I'm really confused because I don't understand what she's asking until we finally go and we like stand outside the shower. And then she points at it, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what you're asking me. No, I'm okay. Like, I hope I don't stink. No, I don't need to take a shower. And so then I figure I've overstayed the first part of my welcome, and I'm ready to leave. And so I get my stuff to go. And she looks at me, and then she asks, like, she looks at me and she goes like this. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna eat. I figured I'd go get a pastry on my way to the 9/11 memorial, my first stop. And she then goes like this. And I'm like, oh, I guess we're gonna eat together. So then I'm trying to figure out, okay, are we eating here? Are we leaving? So then the red puffy sweater comes back. She puts it on. I'm like, okay, I guess we're leaving. So the two of us head out and we end up at a dim sum place where they have these tiny carts. Everyone looks really formal. They have 3 different screens with different programs playing. And it was really interesting. And she got a bunch of different food. I had no idea what I was eating. I was using my chopsticks, and she laughed at me. And I tried talking to her, and we couldn't really say much to each other. But it was okay, because we would smile, and she laughed at my eating, and it worked out. When we left and parted ways, she went to tell me, okay, this is where you go to the metro. I didn't need to go to the metro, but she was trying to tell me I needed to go to the metro. So I listened, and we parted ways, and I couldn't help but smile because I was thrilled that it had only been a few hours and I already knew that I was on an adventure and I had crossed plenty of barriers. Thank you.